Sky, they built a glass paradise way too high. Then the bubble pop, the silent sound of foreclosure signs are all over town. I got a bad loan, a promise they believe. Now the dream is over, they're feeling deceived. I watch from the sidelines, patient and cool, playing by a different set of rules. All I wanna do is and I wanna do is take the window. All I wanna do is and I'll cash your heart and watch the funds grow. This is straight up capitalism, chick chick boom, sweeping up the pieces with the concrete boom. Wanna do, wanna do, wanna do. Get a call from my contact, a whisper on the phone. Another empty unit, the speculator is gone. He says a shame with a crocodile tear as he sells me their future for a fraction of last year. The paperwork's easy, a cash only deal. That heartbreak and panic is my next big steal. They get a cardboard box, I get the ocean view. It's nothing personal, it's just what I do. And I catch your body, take your condo. And I catch your body and watch the dance floor. This is straight up capitalism, chick chick boom, sweeping up the pieces with the concrete broom. When I do, when I do, when I do. Some myself ask for a quick return. Some I rent out, let the lesson burn. They call it a crisis, I call it a sale. In this concrete jungle, the strongest prevail. No funny business, I am the business. They sold you a lead, now I'm the witness. Seek your condo.
Happy Thursday, Miami. This is the Condo Capitalism podcast, a look at the distressed condo market in the Tri-County, South Florida area, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. I'm Peter Zalewski, condo consultant, expert witness, founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. Sticking with our theme of the World Cup. Not doing very well for condo sales, not triggering the wave of new buyers everybody anticipated, as well as last week's due diligence deep dive that showed Broward County ranks as the best condo market for investors in the Tri-County, South Florida area. Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. What are we doing today? We're not going to focus on the distress, the REO, as well as the short sales. Instead, we're going to take a look at which markets have condos that actually comply with the 1% rule of real estate investing. 1% rule of real estate investing says 1 month of rent represents 1% of value. So, for instance, $1,000 a month rent translates into $100,000 of value. $10,000 a month of rent translates into $1 million of value. So that friend you have who paid $500,000 for a condo and now they tell you it's worth $1 million, but they're getting $3,000 a month in rent. It's not worth $1 million. It's worth $300,000. So we're going to dig into the data based on the latest rental statistics for the first half of 2026 from January through June. And we're going to tell you which markets, if any, actually are complying with the 1% rule. Why? Because if you're an investor and you're chasing after value, you're trying to use fundamentals in a market where mortgage rates 6.7% and rising, in a market where affordability is an issue, in a market where there's $4 a gallon gasoline, in a market where a hamburger with fries, tax and tip, out the door, $35 in South Florida. Affordability is a big issue, especially if you live in one of these condos that's getting hit by all of the special assessments. As a result of the Surfside condo collapse back on June 24th, 2021, nearly 100 people died, $1 billion settlement paid out to families and victims. That led to transparency in the condo market. both on the side of individual unit owners being able to get access to information the condo board members have, as well as prospective buyers, or these board members who have been, long time complaint, withholding information. They could be looking at third-degree felony charges. At least that's what's on the books. Who knows if the state would actually go forward and do it. The other aspect of the Surfside condo collapse changes are mandatory inspections. Every 10 years, structural integrity reserve study. Year 30, a milestone inspection. And if that condo is up for a milestone inspection, they could be looking at special assessments of $25,000 if that place is up to 4 stories tall. If the project is 5 to 14 stories, $65,000 our best guesstimate. And then if it's 15 stories or more, that's $100,000 per unit in order to go ahead and pay for all of the necessary changes and improvements that would be required to comply with the revised Florida condo law related to Surfside. So affordability is a big issue, but yet we still got investors. Investors want to play the game. They don't necessarily want to sit on the sidelines, but at the same point, they don't want to get off the couch. They were enjoying themselves watching the World Cup. Now, in order to get them off the couch, you got to have value. And what's one way to figure out value in a market where nobody kind of knows the future? You rely on the fundamentals of the 1% rule. This is the rule that private money lenders use. This is the rule that hard money lenders use in order to figure out whether or not they should take a shot, do further due diligence, and ultimately take a shot at financing a project for a would-be borrower. Real quick and easy way. If you're going out looking for condos, doesn't matter if you're a DIYer, doesn't matter if you were working with a broker. 1% rule will help you understand, should I spend time doing my due diligence or should I simply give it a pass? I call it condo Tinder. Some of you might be in the condo grinder. It makes no difference to me. But basically, if you don't like it, you're swiping left. And if you do like it, you're swiping right. Use the 1% rule to swipe right on those properties. That might actually make sense. So we rolled up the sleeves. We dug in the information using the latest rental data. And we're going to help you understand where you ought to be looking. We're also going to show you which markets are completely overvalued. Remember, 18 months ago, back in January 2025, I called for a 40% price drop in order to get us back to where we need to be from pandemic high pricing. If you guys, just to remind you, 2021, 2022, 2023, we had a heck of a run in condo prices. Spilled over into 2024 as well. And why did we have it? Well, you had the pandemic going on. You had the state mandated masks requirements. A lot of blue states. State of Florida says, you don't have to wear a mask. Come on down. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he was good with it. As a result, people came down. Companies also said you could work from home. You work from home, doesn't matter if you're working on Wall Street or you're working on Silicon Valley. As a result, a lot of people came to South Florida. Many went to Texas. Some even went to Idaho. Boise, Idaho. I've been there. It's all right. The perch is good. Potatoes are great. A little too cold for my taste, but you're going to go and you're going to buy a place out there. Well, a lot of people did. And now what's happening is they got called back to the office. Doesn't matter if it's Northern California or it's up in Manhattan. They're back in the office. Now they got to try to rent out their condos. And you know what? Rents are nowhere close to what they need to be. In fact, rents are at a 5-year low in the Tri-County, South Florida area. Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. First half of 2022, rents came in on a median basis, $2,750 a month. What are they this year, 2026? $2,200. What were they last year? $2,300. Year before that, $2,400. Rents are rolling down. Prior to the pandemic, South Florida rent would have cost you anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a month. We're at $2,200 right now. Are we going to go back to $2,000? I'm not talking about the year. I'm talking about the monthly rent. That's critical because whatever the rent is basically translates into what the valuation is of the condo. Hence the 1% rule of real estate. So we're going to get it all out. We're going to lay it all out. We're going to show you guys where you need to be playing. We're also going to give you some insight as to how much of a price drop is necessary. Little hint, modern condos, those that are up to 29 years old, remember 30 years becomes vintage condo. That's because they got to do a special inspection called a milestone inspection. Those modern condos, they need a 63% price drop in order to comply with the 1% rule. Vintage condos, there's some opportunities there. There are some opportunities where you actually be in the money. There's a premium that's being charged by some sellers, but when you get into certain areas with vintage condos, you're actually being incentivized in a tremendous way to go ahead and pick off one of these condos. Now, Vintage condos are going to be the ones that kind of make the most sense. Again, 30 years old or older. Some of you might have concerns. I don't know if I want to go in a vintage condo. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's going to work out. Well, let me tell you, the most popular condos right now in South Florida in terms of transactions, vintage condos, those that are at least 30 years old or older. Why? First and foremost, 40% cheaper asking price on a vintage condo versus the overall broader market. 40%. That's a 4. That's a 0 right off the bat. That's even before negotiations. Another reason why people are looking at vintage condos, assuming they have a signed inspection report done by a licensed architect, licensed engineer. Once these reports are done, they're turned over to the numbers people, the finance people, the money people, who then attach a dollar value to all the work that's been outlined. Everything that's been identified, all of the shelf life of the roof, the structure, the mechanical, electric, plumbing. So going into one of these units, you got a pretty good idea as to what it could take to get this project or get this building, get that unit where it needs to be, get it on par. Just like a used car. You used to call them used cars. Now they call them certified pre-owned. And what happens in that scenario? Well, experts come in, they take a look at it, they do an analysis, they give you a warranty, they fix it up, and then people are mighty happy buying a pre-owned, used, certified car. They buy the thing, they buy it off, they drive it off the lot, and they're saving cash on it. Same thing going on with vintage condos. So 40% price drop off the bat, signed inspection report. If it's got an inspection report, should give you a little bit of confidence to the point where lenders are willing to provide financing for necessary repairs. And what's it based on? It's based on the signed inspection report. So that should give you a little bit of confidence. What's another reason people are chasing after vintage condos? That would be the fact that they're more usable. 30 years ago when they built a condo, one bed was 1,200 square feet. Two bed, 2,000 square feet. Fast forward to today. One bed, 700 square feet, maybe 750. Two bed, 1,000 square feet. So if you're an end user, vintage condos make sense, 40% cheaper, and they are going to have more square footage. You know what else they have? Better locations. When they were built up until 1996, a lot more dirt to choose from, a lot more choices. The vintage condos tend to have the better locations, especially compared to new stuff coming online. Pound for pound, whoo, gets very, very interesting. And then finally, some people like vintage condos because they have cars. I don't. I haven't had a car since 2013. Reason you like a vintage condo because you like cars is you get to self-park. You get to drive that car right to that parking spot and then grab all your stuff out of the trunk or the boot, depending on which part of the world you live in, and take it all into your unit. All the new ones, valet. You got a valet. So if you're coming down, valet loses your keys, the valet's running behind, everybody's bum rushing to valet. Could take you a little while. Then you're dependent. Or, worst case scenario, you forget something. You got to go back in the elevator. Valet might move it along. They might save it. They might have to repark it. There's all these issues along. But basically, that's what vintage condos have. 40% cheaper. They have better locations in terms of property address. They also have more usable square footage for an end user. Could be a challenge for an investor unless you buy very low because investment properties are based on efficiency, i.e. price per square foot. So the least... The fewer square feet you have, the better off you got a chance of ultimately being in the money. And then finally, you're going to have, the square footage and the self-parking. These are definitely selling points for landlords, especially if they're looking to rent at a time when we're at 5-year lows and rents. $2,200 a month across the board, median basis. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drill down. We're going to show you some statistics. We'll walk you through it. You guys can see it all with your own eyes as to what's going on in the marketplace. And we will compare all of the markets to the 1% rule. We're going to look at South Florida. We're going to look at Miami-Dade County. We'll look at Broward County. We'll also look at Palm Beach County. So if you're an investor, this is kind of where to look. If you are a seller, this should give you some perspective as to how much you are overinflated. Like I said, 63%. Overinflated. If you look at the modern condos, which are up to 29 years old, remember, year 30 becomes vintage condos. So let's go ahead and get into that. But before we do, let me just remind you, you're watching this live. Therefore, you're going to see all the statistics. However, once the podcast is over, we're going to go ahead. We're going to do some editing for sound. We will do some editing for template and look. After that, we'll make it available on demand. But in order to see it on demand, you'll have to be a member of the Miami Condo Investing Club. We're building a community for those people interested in condo information, not Chamber of Commerce talk, not sell-side hyperbole, but more so straightforward information that you can use, actionable information. You can go out there and do whatever it is you want to do in the condo game. Whether you're a DIY buyer, do it yourself. You could be a buyer working with a broker. You could be a listing agent, can't sell a unit. Could be a lender, put money on the street. Could be a regulator. Maybe you're in Orlando, Tallahassee, maybe DC, trying to figure out what's going on in the condo market. Or you could just be curious and or a gadfly. Everybody's welcome. Miami Condo Investing Club. It started in 2024. And we're just providing information. We tend to be ahead of the curve. We told people coming into the summer that the World Cup, which just passed, probably not going to generate the amount of business many people thought. And sure enough, we did a report yesterday, and it showed that, if anything, pending sales went down. So did pricing. It went down on an average price per square foot basis for pending sales. Something that was easy to expect. People coming to town, looking at the pricing here, combined with the fact that they were here for the soccer or the football. Who's going to look for a condo? Plus, even if you were going to look for a condo, good luck getting a listing agent to show you that property. Matches are starting at 3 o'clock. They're starting at 3 o'clock. Real estate people start at 10 a.m. That's a short little window in order to see that property. And as a result, big zero for the World Cup in terms of immediate numbers. Not to say sometime in the future, some developer or some seller might claim that somebody was in town, they came to see it, and then they closed, weeks or months, years later. Probably going to say it, but in terms of immediate pending sales, they fell during that 6-week period of the World Cup when Miami hosted 7 matches, including the third place match between England and France, which occurred on Saturday, July the 18th. So that being said, let's go ahead. We're going to share our list. We're going to start off with South Florida. Then we will get into Miami-Dade County. We'll go to Broward, and we'll go to Palm Beach County, all based on the 1% rule, as well as the rental information for the first half of 2026. So let me go ahead and pull up my list, and we will get started.